Hello, my lovelies, and welcome back. Yes, today I have a super special guest, and it is really hard to talk English because we literally just talked for hours in German. The one and only Philosopher's Game, another amazing YouTube channel that, is here to talk Tolkien with me, and another fellow German, which is yay, I like that. There are not enough of us here. And Chris, introduce yourself, please. I don't think there's anyone here who doesn't know you, but just in case.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. Very nice to be here. My name is Chris, aka the Philosopher's Games, and I do videos about Tolkien and a bit of gaming stuff on YouTube. Usually my videos are quite long, and that is probably what I'm probably known for unnecessary long videos about Tolkien. I guess that's what describes me best. But yeah, thank you for having me. Really nice to be here and finally talk to someone in person about our favorite hobby.
Yay! Well, hobby, love, is something we all share. And we just talked about this, and I always have to mention this because I find it so cool that literally all the Tolkien channels, because there are so many questions about that, like, do you guys get along and blah, blah, and we do. And this is why, I try to have all these amazing guys, again, still looking for females, people. All these amazing guys on my channel. And you said you have long ass videos. I don't think they're long enough. And I really do think that this is why people watch your content and like your content, and because it's so that all the information is in there. I don't have to go back to the books and look something up because you already mentioned everything that's there. And so go check out the channel. I think you were one of the first Tolkien YouTubers I actually watched, and I think your Sauron video was one of the first videos I ever saw.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that's how I discovered this world, and I was like, oh, there are people on YouTube talking about Tolkien. Yay!
Yes.
Found my people.
It's kind of interesting that, for example, Man of the West, probably the most well-known Tolkien YouTuber, also started maybe a bit earlier than I did, and also Geek Zone. Also, shout-outs to this guy.
Yeah,
really amazing dude.
Yeah.
And he also started around this. It was all around, I think, 2017 or something. I think Joyce might have started a bit earlier, but around that time. And then we started, and some of our videos, in my case, my Sauron video, really got kind of was kind of successful, got a bit of views and traction, and was pretty fascinating. And since then, my once a gaming only channel turned to a gaming channel with a bit of Tolkien, and then to a Tolkien channel with a bit of gaming.
Exactly.
You turned it around. Transformation of the channel.
Exactly. A change of plans. Let's do Tolkien.
It's just a natural development, I guess.
It is. And one thing I really, because, everybody comes for me because I pronounce stuff really weird. I don't even try to do it in the perfect way or the way Tolkien wants us to pronounce it. But I can roll the R. That's me being German. I think that's a thing we can do. So I say Galadriel, which people seem to like. But, Chris is the guy, if you want to know more about, the scripts and the language and how to pronounce stuff. Chris is the go-to person on the internet, on YouTube to know the right pronunciations for stuff. So
it's kind of an interesting story. When I started making my first video, I came to like a name and thought, how do I say this name? I probably have never said it out loud. Maybe I read it 1,000 times, but usually I don't tell the name. So I just looked up Appendix E and learned like the pronunciation rules for the Elvish names. Then I noticed, okay, there's more to it. There are other languages that, for example, I don't know, the Dwarven names are Old Norse or something, or not directly Old Norse derived from that, but then I looked into Old Norse, or the names of Rohan are from Old English inspired. So I looked up the pronunciation rules for Old English and so on. And over time, I developed like a little bit of knowledge about this, and always went. At least I tried. Of course, sometimes I don't know better or screw up or so, but especially stress is sometimes really hard when you talk English, and then the stress is totally different from English, basically, that can be really
because you have to think
off-putting.
twice. You basically have to translate twice, because
Yeah.
we think in German, then
Yes.
speak in another language, and then in that language you speak, you have to bring a third language in there. So I get you.
Yeah, that's definitely difficult. I learned a lot about languages, and I'm really thankful for this, because language is, of course, a big part of what Tolkien's works are about, I guess.
Yes.
And it is really fascinating how much detail there just is in his works about languages, how he created them, that there are even how languages develop in his world over time and change.
Mm-hmm.
That's so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And learned a lot just by reading Tolkien and looking further into it, just to make my videos and maybe get the pronunciation somewhat right here and there.
Oh, no,
But
definitely.
now I do it like several years, and I guess usually I can pronounce. I wouldn't say everything, because sometimes there are some rare cases, but I guess it works. And if not, I just look it up, because I usually write my videos in script and do a lot of research. And also a lot of research goes into finding out how to pronounce things.
Yeah, that takes a lot. Yeah, I guess that takes
Especially
a long time.
the video I did about Rohan, that was that took a lot of research, just finding out the names. There's even Gothic in it.
Yeah.
Some of the very early names before the Eotheat were Gothic names, and they have like some special rules. Kind of fascinating how this developed, but yeah.
Cool. So no, definitely that this is my go-to channel, and I think you have a really cool video. I can link that, because we were talking about what video to link. I can link that. You have one about the history of the languages. So I don't know the exact name, but there's a really good video from you about that.
Yes, actually, I think what did I call it? Like Tolkien and languages, or something like this.
Something like that. Yeah.
Tolkien's languages. It's very simple. Law of Tolkien's languages, I think I called it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not, of course, not a complete overview, but just like a little introduction into this very complex topic. Mm-hmm. And it's really fascinating what you can uncover there.
Yeah. And it is the same with the maps, where like the language and the maps, those are two things that were the maps that were so important for him. And it's not just about the story. The story, developed around those two things, which is the fascinating, though. Those were the foundations in a way. Mm. And then he developed a story around it. And obviously he wanted to create a mythology for England, blah, 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 blah. But still, this is important. And I don't think people stress it enough and just don't really care about, and I get it in a way, it's complicated to pronounce everything the correct way. But it's also a bit of fun. I mean, I studied literature and language as well, German language as well. So I'm a bit a nerd for that, but I gave up on Tolkien because it's so hard. So yeah.
Some of the names are really difficult, and some of the things are also not 100% clear, even if you, for example, look into Tolkien's own readings when it, for example, comes to Isengard. He always said Isengard, but if you would apply like the old English reading, it would be Isengard. And
so we are right in our German translation because we say it correct.
Yeah, it's actually a plus. Like in German, a lot of the pronunciation is relatively similar. That also applies, of course, to other European languages. But
Indo-Germanic.
English is more. English is a bit of an outlier because of its complex phonology. Really complex language when it comes to pronunciation. Mm-hmm. Even though people probably don't think it, but it actually is. It's a really complex language in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with a lot of influences. Yes. But people, sadly, maybe next time, Chris and I will be talking about languages, but that one I really have to prepare because otherwise it will be Chris talking for, like 99% of the time. And I'll just be like, yeah, you're right, what he said. Now, we're here today, as probably the title will say, to talk about an amazing topic, and a topic there's not much, content and videos and information out there. Well, information, yes, but we want to talk about the Northern Kingdom of Arnor. And, it is partly Second Age and definitely Third Age, beginning of Third Age. But yes, Third Age people mostly know what happened later on in the 3 Lord of the Ring books. But there is a whole story about the Northern Kingdom and kind of the sister or brother kingdom to Gondor. And yeah, it's super interesting, and this is what we want to talk about. And we just go through a bit of some facts. When was it founded? We'll talk through all the kings. No, I'm just kidding. We won't. Tell me all the kings. No, just the main players. And yeah, then we'll just have a bit of a discussion about what we think, parallels we see, and stuff like that. So that's what this will be about. Sadly, not languages, maybe another time. Yes. So, Chris, overall, what would you say? What do you really find? What is the thing you find super fascinating what you know about Arnor, or what you found while digging a bit deeper into the lore? What is the thing that really fascinates you?
That's a really good question. The thing, I guess, is kind of an interesting detail when it comes to Arnor and Gondor is in a way, Gondor could have learned from the mistakes of Arnor, but didn't. And in the end, it was a guy from Arnor in the form of Aragorn, who actually you could say saves Gondor in a way. It's kind of fascinating, in my opinion. Just imagine all the, like, Frodo would not have left there, and maybe Gandalf would have stayed in that region, and the meeting in Rivendell would not have happened. And just imagine what would have happened to Gondor if that all would not have happened there. You see that it looks grim for Gondor otherwise, and in a way, I think that Gondor might have looked, we see this in some of the characters like Denethor the second later, who looks a bit down to the people from this old extinct kingdom. And but he didn't learn from the mistakes. In a weird way, he didn't learn from the mistakes. It's that's a really fascinating detail in my opinion. Basically, it also was once a very proud and powerful kingdom at the beginning of the Second Age, and which turned the tide and saved also Gondor by forming the last alliance. I'm skipping ahead a bit, but yeah, that's really fascinating that it's still very powerful in a weird way, and also you could learn a lot of things, but people as humans tend to do didn't learn from it.
Yeah. As it happened in Numenor before, As
it has been in Numenor before, that's true.
Yeah. Cool. That is a cool, because I thought about, okay, what is the point I want to, but I haven't thought about that, but it's a good one. And I like these things, and it just shows, again, the failing of men, not that elves did, like just mentioning Fëanor and his brood, but, I mean, elves do fail as well. But yes, it is, again, kind of a tragic downfall, and the failing of men, and that men are not in any way perfect, and even they have all the facts and all the history written down, but they, like what you say, they don't learn from it. Cool. Yeah, like that.
That's really cool. Also, another thing that I always like to imagine is when the last king of Arthedain, or that how he just had to escape and hide with the Palantiri
and
Arvedui, and that's also like a fascinating story. He had to go into the Blue Mountains where the dwarf once had their dwellings, and hide there. And then we have the whole story of the
prophecy.
Of the prophecy, and of course the ice bay of I think it's Forochel. That's also, it's a really cool story in a way, which resembles also a bit, I think, the story of Aragorn later, which is also fascinating. There are many little aspects and parallels there going on. That would be another point that I really like about this whole ending of Arnor. It's really fascinating in the end of the wars against Angmar and so on.
Totally. So what I would say is in a way a bit similar. But it's more about Sauron and the Witch King. And I do think the Witch King is a former Numenorean king. I have dedicated videos on that. And he's not from the line of the faithful like Aragorn and the line of the faithful from the 9 escaping ships that escaped Numenor, but he is from the line of the later kings, like from Ar-Pharazôn's, one of his predecessors. And I do think what I found fascinating is that Sauron always, same with Numenor, he saw, okay, they are too big, I can't defeat them. What is another way to defeat them? And I really do think this is what happened, because if Gondor and Arnor would have stood together and would have still existed and be one kingdom with one high king, and then because the high king was always in Arnor, and Gondor was, like I said, like kind of the sister or twin kingdom, however you want to call it, and there the king there was just the king. So there was one main king and then the king there. But twice actually they split up. So and that was obviously to the Witch Kings and Sauron's liking. I mean, Sauron, he drowned in Numenor, he lost power and all that, so he wasn't the main player in this. But obviously the Witch King acted in Sauron's will in a way, and he had also, like, he was vengeful against those Numenorians, against the line of the faithful, 100%. Yes. And so I really like the idea that, then these kingdoms destroyed themselves in a way because they split up, and they had and it happened twice. So first, they didn't found one kingdom. I think that was the first mistake. And we learned that the 9 ships, so when Numenor drowned, 9 ships escaped. And this is also fascinating because Tolkien likes numbers. And 9 were the first ships that came to, I mean, there were later more colonizations of Numenor, more ships coming, but there were 9 ships in the beginning that, with Elros on there, that founded Numenor, and 9 ships escaped. That's not much, people.
Yeah, that's definitely not much.
No, it's just a few. And they came to a land that was already colonized. So there were Numenorians already living there. It was not just these nine ships, but they founded 2 kingdoms. Difficult. I mean, I get it in a way, but they split up the family, right? Because the father was in Arnor, so Elendil went to Arnor, and the sons, Anarion and Isildur, went to Gondor. So you have 2 kingdoms. Could make sense, but I think thrift and problems is pre-programmed with this.
At least over time.
Over time, exactly. And then something happened because, and you talked about that, because there was I think the second or third king died, and so Arnor got split up in 3 kingdoms.
Yes, exactly.
Which is a problem, because this is what happened in European history, and we are Germans. We know what we're talking of, because Karl der Große, you're talking German. So Charlemagne. I don't. What's the English name? I think Charlemagne. Charlemagne. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. The French word is Charlemagne, but it should be Charlemagne. I think his son also, then his son, so his grandchildren, split up Europe. So that there was one king. It was not Europe at that time, but he was in a way the founder of Europe, or the idea of European Union. And then the kingdoms split up because each son got a kingdom, and this is what happened here.
Yes,
and that's a problem.
That is the problem. That was the beginning of the downfall of Arnor, the split.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating how I don't know, it worked for quite some time quite well.
Yes.
And Arnor was strong, and then it came to this point where this I think, what was the name of the king? I think Amlaith or something like this was, I think. No, that was the Earendor was the, and they had one son that was Amlaith, and I think the other 2 sons are not known, but and then they disagreed who shall become king, and then they split it up, and then the whole downward spiral started. And
Did.
from this point, it's
Yeah.
and as you say, it has definitely parallels to the history of many kingdoms or many realms in Europe. If you think about the Roman Empire, that also had some problems.
Yeah.
That is always not a good idea to split up, especially if you have such a powerful foe.
That's the thing. You have to stand together, and this is exactly what like with Numenor. They were actually so strong, but Sauron defeated them from within. Basically, they defeated themselves. That that was a different reason. Like the king wanted eternal life, and he believed at the end of his lifespan he began to believe Sauron's lies. And it's different, but still the concept is the same. They destroy themselves from within. The enemy doesn't really have to do that much. And
that is that's really fascinating. That definitely parallels to Numenor. I mean, the what is it? The eastern part of Arnor, called Rhudaur, then became basically an ally of Angmar later, or through time, and the line of the faithful ended there and was replaced and
with the hillmen.
With the hillmen, exactly, and under the influence of the Witch King. And from that point on, the whole region was destabilized, if that's a word. And that is really fascinating. There's a lot of detail going. If we go into the geography, I can't say the word, geography of the of the place, Weathertop is exactly like at the border of all these three split places, and that's
and
really
fascinating for Weathertop.
Yeah. And a lot of civil war, you could say, was going on there at that time. And that is, I mean, how are you supposed to defeat Sauron and his forces, who all bend to his will, or the Witch King, if you fight each other in this small area? That simply cannot work.
Yeah. And again, you can ask the question, it was not just those three, it was not just Arnor who got split up in those three kingdoms. So again, so it's Arthedain, it is Cardolan and Rhudaur. I have no idea. I'm probably butchering this. Chris will correct.
It's actually, it's really hard to say one, because the RH is a voiceless trill. So it's Rhudaur.
Rhudaur.
So the...
Okay.
It's really it's really hard to say. I have to admit, every time I have to say it in a recording, I often have to record that passage too.
Oh my god! Yeah, I do it now. Free speech. Okay.
Yeah, so free speech. So mistakes will be made.
Mistakes will be made. Disclaimer. Exactly. No, but so it was split up in those three kingdoms, and then there was still, Gondor. And I do think the problem also lies there, because what you said earlier, like with then the Stuarts taking over later in Gondor, looking down at, basically a destroyed Arnor. And Gondor, they kind of had a thrift amongst themselves with later kings, and they didn't come to aid many times. They did in the beginning and helped each other, but they didn't later on, because there were then kings, for example. I think it was Argeleb. I have to look at my notes because I have no idea what time. So it was in Third Age, pretty close to the downfall, just before the downfall of Arnor, and it was in Third Age 1349, and he first reclaimed the kingship of Arnor, because, as you said, the line of the kings. So there were three sons. They founded these three kingdoms, and Rhudaur?
Yeah. Rhudaur.
What the F? and Cardolan?
Cardolan is easy.
Okay, so that one. The line of the kings died out there. So the only line still existing was Arthedain, and so the king there, that was Argeleb, and he claimed kingship again. He wanted to reunite them, so basically reunite Arnor again, but it didn't work. And then happened what you said. So Cardolan said yes, but Rhudaur said no. And so they then exposed themselves and exposed that they were allies of the Witch King. Actually,
Yes.
that happened in that time. And Gondor didn't come for aid later on, although the last king basically asked for aid, but he did his mistake was that he claimed kingship, and we know that very often, except for Aragorn, who was reluctant, didn't work, and he wanted, because the line of the kings of Gondor, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they also died out, and he wanted to marry, or he married the last king's daughter.
Exactly. It was. Let me just look it up.
Firiel. Yeah,
Firiel was the name. Exactly. Firiel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Firiel was the daughter of the king of Gondor, and I think also to the to excuse Gondor's actions a little bit, they were, I think, also attacked. Wasn't this Balchoth? I think the like it's I assume an Easterling tribe that attacked Gondor at this time, and the king died there, and then basically a distant cousin, also from the king's line, had to take over this place and to have to take over the kingship. And he was also very successful, and then he was easy for him to be accepted as the new king.
He was a great warrior, and therefore, people were like, yeah, of course, yeah, we rather have a great warrior as our king than a queen.
Exactly. That is what they want, and they, of course, then refused the claim for kingship of Arvedo from former Arnor, and that, of course, didn't help in their later relationship. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no,
exactly. That's definitely one of the big problems. I just want to double check if it's really the Balchoth, if I pronounce them correctly. But
yeah, but I really, while you look it up, I really found it interesting, that he could have reunited the whole,
yes.
like literally from the founding of Arnor and Gondor, he could, because the two lines would come together again with him marrying Firiel. And I mean, they're not that close related. Thousands of years have gone by, it's okay to marry her. And he could have done it, but it didn't work. And again, they failed, and this is so many times when you look up the history of, okay, they split up the first time, then they split up the whole kingdom of Arnor, then thrift and petty, like wars amongst themselves instead of fighting the Witch King, who was in front of their gates, basically. And then this again, they didn't take the chance to reunite and fight the enemy together, and failed again.
Yeah. Of course, it's the Rain Riders, not the other tribe. The other one are the ones from Kirion. He and Eor fought them, and they made this alliance between Rohan and Gondor. That was later. That was the Balchoth.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, where was Gondor when Arthedain fell? You could make that claim as well.
Exactly.
But to drop a few dates in here, so because it is interesting, because normally you have with the beginning of an age, like first age, second age, third age, you have foundings, and then like with Numenor, because the second age is basically the age of Numenor. Numenor basically in the year, I think 32, was founded, and they began settling in Numenor. And then almost at the end, Numenor drowned, and then just a few more years. But here it is interesting that in the second age, the ones who survived the downfall founded Gondor and Arnor. So in the year second age, 3,320, so literally almost at the end of the second age. And well, it lasted a while actually, till it really, really fell and was completely destroyed, and just the rangers were left and no more kings in the third age, 1974. So almost 2,000 years it lasted, which is a long time.
Pretty much.
But still, it you have, there were so many wars going on with especially the Witch King and Arnor, and a lot happened in Gondor as well at that time, and then the Stuarts taking over. So it's a really interesting time, but we don't have that much information. I mean, the good thing is we have the Annals of the Kings, so you have all the kings. There's literally all, like Numenorean kings, all kings are mentioned, and then later in Gondor, all Stuarts, which is cool. And for some kings, we have a backstory and a history. So for everybody who's interested in that, that is a really cool and underdeveloped topic, I think.
That is, that's true. I mean, it's very fascinating that Tolkien put just so much work into this detail, just listing all the kings and all the details when they lived. And of course, not everyone has like a very, very detailed background story, but if you dig quite deep, you find little snippets here and there about what they did too. That is really fascinating, and dedication to his work.
It is. Because if you think he did the same for the Numenorean kings, there's a backstory to every Numenorean king, and there were 35 kings and queens. And so there's a lot of information about all because those are now thousands of years of human kings. So it's
and we spoke about it earlier just before the stream, that it's sometimes really, really difficult to keep just track of all the names and all the connections about all those characters and all the background stories. That is just too much. You definitely need to read into this, and then you might be an expert for some time. At least that's how it works for me. And then I know the details, but ask me like 4 months later and I forgot half of it again. It's so it's just too much information to think of. Like, that's how mistakes like Wayne Riders and Balhoth and how you suddenly mix them up in your head. Stuff like this.
Well, you have always people in the comment section who know better. So shout out to you people.
Shout out to you. Please have mercy with us.
Yeah, exactly. Don't come at us. And another super cool fact, because you talked about, Arvedo, the last king of Arnor, drowning. And I think we'll go over the prophecy and all that. But talking a bit about the things that happened before, because the Line of the Faithful brought really cool things. And I think they brought 3 with them, if I'm not wrong, or more. I don't know. I know there were 8 Palantiri. Do you know a bit about? I think you have a video about the Palantiri, don't you?
I definitely have. I have a video where I talk a bit more about him, but I think not a truly dedicated video yet. But yeah, you are right. Elendil, they brought. There are 8, and at least we know of, and 7 were brought to Middle Earth,
and 1 is in Aman.
Two. Elendil took 3 of the Palantiri for the North Kingdom, and for Gondor, his 2 sons, Isildur and Anarion, each took 2. So 4 in Gondor, 3 in Arnor. Interestingly, the probably, I assume it's the most powerful and biggest stone. I think there's like a note somewhere that you need basically several people to carry it.
Yes.
That was in Osgiliath.
Yeah.
It was like, I think, the master stone in Middle Earth, and there's another stone, an 8th stone in Tol Eressëa. Exactly.
So the Valar basically could spy and still have an idea what is going on in Middle Earth, and that is one of the things I now want to mention. But I think both of the stones. I think the one in Anúminas, so that was the Master Stone of the North, I think it was called, or Chief Stone of the North, I think, which was in Amon Sul, but was counted that it belonged basically to Arthurine later on, and I think that was just as important. I don't know the size wise, maybe you know that better, than the one in Gondor, but I think one was the chief stone of the north, and the Gondor one was the chief stone of the south. I think, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the information about those stones is, I think, really split. For example, there is one in what's it called, Emin Bereit, I think. There's this tower, Ellosterion, and there's one of them that it's actually guarded by the elf. So Círdan later guarded it, and Gil-galad before. They also built the towers, and usually it was used to look upon, for example, the Master Stone in Tol Eressëa in the on the west continent, on this little island, and so there's some information about that, and I think in Lord of the Rings we also have Gildor and his elves at the beginning. If we just jump into the Fellowship of the Ring a bit, and there's like a note, I think, in one of the poem books. I'm not sure which one. Could be The Road Goes Ever On or so. There's also some lore notes in those, and that's mentioned that, for example, Gildor and his group, I think, came back traveling from the like a pilgrimage to this Ellosterion Stone, the Linden Elves, to maybe take a look on the west continent, and that's kind of interesting detail. But you see how just scattered this information is. It's so hard to just keep track. It's just
parts everywhere.
There's like a half sentence somewhere. And that makes it kind of difficult sometimes to remember all the details.
But the overall topic, what Tolkien kind of, and this is how I would interpret it, and it's not like Tolkien said that, this is my interpretation of it, is, they like, with each time, like those two drowned, with the last king of Arnor, with Arvedo, we'll get to him in a second, but spoiler, when he drowned, two of the Palantiri drowned, and more Palantiri get lost throughout the ages. And I don't know if you would agree, but I feel like this is the less and less possibility of communicating, because, as you said, there was this Master Stone in Aman, with the Valar, so basically with the demigods and the other angels, and in a way you feel like kind of communication is cut off more and more and more, and now you really have the feeling more and more and more that because the elves and Noldor were actually the ones who forged them, right? So it's elven technology, and then also made in Aman, and then it gets lost, and you feel like so there's no more communication with the Undying Lands and the West, or less and less and less, and this really becomes the Age of Men, where these things are less important and they care about other things. So this is a bit how I feel it, which the symbolization of them getting lost is.
That's a really, really good point that you make, especially if you think about it now. The Palantiri of the North got lost. Later, the Palantiri, most of them of the South, also got lost. And you see how the communication between those two kingdoms also declines. That's a really good point that you make there. And only the only stone left in the north is the Ellosterion Stone in Emun Bereid. And that is guarded by the elves. So the elves are the basically remaining, or not remaining, preserving things of old, and just establish their connection to the West. But men are not really, except for maybe Aragorn and a few rangers, aren't really part of that anymore. The friendship of the elves, and I mean, the Elendil brought the stone with him, and he gave one of the stones to Gil-galad, and to just strengthen this
the communication
alliance and the bond and the communication, etc. That's and that got more and more, as this goes more and more diminished. You also see how the realms diminish, and see how important all those little details are to just establish a powerful kingdom realm, and that is able to withstand a very, very powerful foe in the far southeast. That's very true.
And it in a way symbolizes what our world goes through, when countries stop talking to each other and just let weapons speak or stuff like that. In a way, it really symbol for me. Again, it's not like Tolkien said that he didn't like allegories and stuff like that, so he didn't say the Palantiri stand for communicate, but in a way they do. And I find that fascinating that they got and all this knowledge behind them and knowledge within them, and because what does a man stand for? All the knowledge, because the Noldor go there, all the elves go there. They learn everything there from the Valar, and this is real knowledge, and everything got lost. First, the knowledge of the men got lost with the drowning of Numenor. I always find that so fascinating, because they don't take texts or anything with them. They don't even want to know or learn. They don't teach their kids. Coming to Arnor and Gondor, they don't really teach their kids the history of Numenor. This is very clear, and Tolkien makes this very clear. They are in a way ashamed of what happened there, and they kind of want to have a clean slate and fresh start. And
Yes.
they just say, Ar-Pharazôn and his pompous army. And I mean, they build him, a statue and whatnot, but it is in a way that they don't want to continue their faults and their history, which they do, which you just said.
They basically do.
Yeah, but they, all this law and all that is drowning with Numenor, and now with the Palantiri drowning, this communication and knowledge and all that is, and the connection to the Valar is lost. And
that's also just an extension of the conflict, because not only the faithful survived, also the Kingsmen, these later Black Numenorians, they are still there, and the Nazgul in parts, most likely, also Black Numenorians. So the conflict of old carries on in those kingdoms of exile.
It does. Yeah, just on a bigger continent, and one that doesn't drown that easily. Well, shout out to Beleriand.
Shout out to Beleriand.
Cool. No, so I just wanted to know if you see it like that, because I think that's, again, I love the topic of the Palantiri, and you see how important they are, because even in the books in the Third Age, the few that are left are still, they're then used by the baddies, which is also, in a way, a shame, because they were made by, the Noldor were the baddies, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean, yes.
Yeah, but they were made by elves, and then Sauron uses this former good thing and uses it for evil. It's very similar to something like a ring, a pure thing that is then turned into something evil, or like the Silmarils, something so pure and actually beautiful that captured the light of the two trees becomes an object of, like malice. Wars are fought for it, and it's cool how he always turns these.
Yes.
I like that.
It's really like, if you think about it, it's somewhat of a chain reaction of history repeating itself. Yes. If you just think about the as we just described, the Palantiri that Palantiri used to communicate, that got lost. The kingdoms diminished. Then the foes pick them up. We have later Saruman and Sauron, who have won. They use it to communicate and become really, really strong. But then they also have their own agenda split apart again.
And communication. Use it against them.
It basically is also part of their downfall. It's kind of fascinating how this, how so much evolves around those things. That's around those stones. That's really fascinating. They play an important role, and what also makes them so somewhat relatable for us, especially we coming from living in like an age of communication ourselves. We know that having the possibility to just transform information and just discuss something with, like we do right now. We're also using our Palantiri right now, if you want to say that, to discuss this, and that has a huge value to us. It's kind of funny that those mystical stones can do the same just in the fantasy world. Yeah. And you can understand that's powerful, at least especially from the perspective now of the, let's say, the internet age, or maybe also the telephone and so on. It's probably a bit older and does something similar, but you know what I mean. Yeah. It's kind of a funny device if you think about it, and still it's also very mysterious. How does it work? What is the story behind it? I remember.
Well, Tolkien makes it mysterious by not telling us the whole. This is how he always does stuff. This is when things are mysterious. He just doesn't really tell us how magic works in his world.
That is absolutely true. And I remember just seeing Saruman using this weird stone in the movie when I have not read the books. I started reading the books after seeing the films. Yeah. Oh. And so, what is this stone? What is going on with it? I found it fascinating. This weird fortress. Who built it? And I was so happy finding out that there are answers to this. That's what I really love about Tolkien.
Yeah, and I love that he gives object life, like in like the ring is alive. Yes, the ring is alive, and so many of these, like the Silmarils, are alive. And I really do think that, well, the Palantiri, but they stand for something, and I find that fascinating that he likes these. And objects are not just weapons and used for this and this, and they stand for, they symbolize something, and I really like those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Note to ourselves, Chris, we need to do a video on the Palantiri.
That's true. That might be a really good topic.
Yeah.
But that's also a really good point. And what I like about Tolkien is how he defines or shows power in his works. When somebody is powerful, what he does, it's not always like he has the mighty glowing sword that destroys mountains, but it's stuff like a little stone that you can use to communicate and nobody knows, and see the movements of your enemies if you want, and can influence. We see how Sauron's success in all his deeds. We come back to, for example, Numenor and its downfall. It's really about Sauron deceiving people. It's not he goes there and just kills everyone. He is a prisoner, and he just, through being very smart and decepting, manages to become advisor of the king, and later basically runs the whole island.
Yeah, in 3 years he becomes from prisoner to advisor to the king. 3 years, like, okay.
Yeah, that's Sauron in a nutshell. That shows how powerful he is. You don't need like summon a gigantic, I don't know, fireball from the sky and destroy it. He makes it totally differently, and it's also a sad story if you think about Ar-Pharazôn. If what happens to him, he's like buried in this weird, let's call it not cave, but dimension or whatever it is, basically as a punishment by God himself in basically all eternity. That's pretty grim, I guess.
Well, in Dagorach, I just had a video about that. He can come back. What do you think? Is Ar-Pharazôn fighting? On which side is he fighting in Dagorach? Is he helping Morgoth and Sauron? Or is he on the other side?
That's a really good question. Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know. I would be really angry of Sauron. So I don't know. We'll probably join the others, but I don't know. Being long in such a bad situation could probably bring you to madness enough that you might want the world just see burn, and I don't know, really hard to say.
Since the end of the Second Age, I mean, dude he's tired of this. He wants revenge.
Yes.
Exactly, and like the ring symbol itself, what I said before, like it's actually something pure, and gems of the earth and gems they create. He always takes something pure and good, and you're like, oh wow. And then he put all his malice in the, like, it's cool.
Yes. And he connects it so well to things that seem to us small. It's not the big sword-swinging heroes that in the end win. It's like little Frodo and little Gollum, like little hobbits ones, that decide on the fate of Middle-earth. That's really big, in my opinion.
Yeah. And this is, because a first-time reader could think of when you just see like you see a plot outline, reluctant king takes back his kingdom. That could be the plot line, and becomes king and marries the other king's daughter. So you could think this is a story of Aragorn, and that he's the main protagonist. But he's not, and that is that is a cool thing, like what you could, for me, maybe it's Sam. For me, Sam is the hero. For you, somebody else could be the hero, and that's how he does it, and it's
that's what makes his work so special, in my opinion. He does it so well, just connecting all the little dots and using very little details and
all the backstory to every little
all the backstory.
Like he has literally a book on every little thing or a theory. Yeah, I mean that's what makes it good for us because we will never run out of content to create.
That
Like
is
literally,
that is true. Like I have this series where I go through the books and compare them. Once just want to do a book film comparison, but it turned
yeah,
out into a book analysis with a bit of film content. And
of course
I
it's
just
you.
yeah, I'm just at Rivendell. Reached Rivendell, still lying in his bed. I have like 7 hours of content, which is all written down and very condensed.
Oh my god! Yeah, this is why you drop your videos not daily,
Yeah,
basically.
it's true. But it's so fascinating. You read them, the chapters so many times, and you always just discover a new detail you have never seen before. Like, for example, I don't know, maybe I'm interpreting this a little bit, but there is like a scene on Weathertop where Aragorn is described basically how the moon is behind him, and you could see it like as a crown for him that's foreshadowing his fate as later King Elessar, and then it also is described. It's not described that the moon is a crown for him, but it reads a little bit like it because the book describes that the ruins on Weathertop are like a crown for the hill, and then we also have the stars in the background that fade in the light of the moon, but you have the stars, the crown, and that's of course the banner of Gondor and Arnor. That is really, it's a really cool detail. That this maybe this is a little bit foreshadowing, and but stuff like this you always just find so many amazing little details in just reading the chapters.
Yeah,
it's I love it.
Yeah, and talking about the detail, one other thing I wanted to mention about the whole Arnor and Gondor thingy is who was responsible because Isildur, he was the second king then basically, and he got killed pretty early on. We know he had the ring and he got killed, lost the ring. And then, Valandi became the new king, and they then split. Then Arnor split up from Gondor. That was the time when they split, and so Isildur's death was the reason for the first splitting up. And why did Isildur die? Because of the ring.
Yeah.
And again, that is. I mean, it's not really Sauron he couldn't, but then the ring was acting as Sauron's whatever, not mouthpiece, but a part of Sauron. A big part was in there. So I really find that fascinating. Do you know more on because there are different versions, and I think what Tolkien wanted to prove is that actually he often wanted to get rid of the ring, but he couldn't. And I think he was on his way to Rivendell once and wanted actually to give the ring to Elrond. I think that is in Unfinished Tales. I'm not 100% sure. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, not have the passage in front of my eyes, so can't go too much into details. Either, but I'm pretty sure it's Unfinished Tales.
I think it's
pretty much sounds like it.
Yeah.
But it definitely would show the struggle that this ring puts on Isildur. Maybe he could have guessed that's maybe a bad idea to go against the advice of Círdan and Elrond and not throw it into the fire, keep it as an heirloom.
Yeah.
And now he searching for a solution, but it never comes to that. That conflict is maybe a very interesting detail.
Yeah,
but
and
like you said, there are multiple versions of this. Like I said, I don't only have the chapter right now in front of me. Sadly.
Yeah, and it's not in the book, so he decided not to put it in the Lord of the Ring books that his struggle with. But you see it later with Bilbo that he also struggles to get rid of the ring, and so it is very similar. It's not that he couldn't just destroy it. He didn't have the ring that long at that time. I think at that time the ring didn't have that strong of an influence on Isildur. It was more like, I'm going to keep it as an heir. I think that was more the thought. But then later on, he got literally this, this addiction to the ring, and he wanted to get rid of it because he knew he had to, but he couldn't. Same like Bilbo. And I find it fascinating again that then when he died, it was the ring's fault, basically. And so the ring divided Arnor and Gondor, which in a way was the beginning of the downfall, because they lost their strength as one. And in a way, again, like in Numenor, Sauron influenced that. And that's just so, knowing all those little details that led to it is fascinating.
Yes, that it truly is. There's just so many details. It's sometimes like we said earlier about the when we talked about the Palantiri. Sometimes it's really difficult to just find all the information. That it's so split up, like in a half sentence in one book, another half sentence in another book.
And what is canon? It's always a question of, you can't just throw everything at the people and be like, pick whatever you want to be true.
Yes.
Because he changed his mind many times. But this is normal. You develop a story, but then you have already 1, 2, 3 books written. And how can you can't go back to and change a written book.
Yes.
So I think that was...
Tolkien had a bit to do this with The Hobbit, the second edition of it. And if he himself had finished the Silmarillion, he might have put out a second edition of the Lord of the Rings again to just change up a few things. Who knows? He worked on many different versions and ideas later in his life, and that might conflict with the Lord of the Rings, and at least in some details. And I don't know. Like, I think I have a video about canon and how difficult it sometimes is
I love that video. Yeah. And everybody can pick what is canon for them. Those books are there. They're published by the Tolkien estate. It's not like somebody digged out notes, from his bin and just made it.
Christopher Tolkien was extremely transparent when it comes to how he built the Silmarillion. He even writes it in the foreword of the Silmarillion and hints at, if my father would have written this book, it might have looked different. Keep this in mind when you read it. And he later explained exactly in a lot of books, in the History of Middle-earth books, what other material there was he had to pick from, what conflicts he had to solve, and so on. That's a really tremendous work that he did there. Also, a lot of credit goes to him. A lot of what we discussed or can discuss today, we just mentioned the unfinished tales. If he would have not published those notes and drafts of Tolkien, we could not talk about it.
No.
It would still be a fantastic book and interesting, but we would have not access to a lot of depth and detail otherwise.
And fleshing out of characters, which you just, like there's just a little passage about them, but he actually had a plan for he just couldn't finish it, in his lifetime. And it's good. We have all that. But coming back to a really cool, and to round this up, and I think this is, I love all these prophecies, and there is a really cool thing, because saying with what we said, that this kingdom, basically Arnor, then declined, and there were just the Rangers left. So just Aragorn's ancestors were left. And what you literally said in the beginning, and he is the one then in the end reuniting Arnor and Gondor again, like the Ranger, where people like Denethor, the stewards who took over from the kings, looked down to, because they lived like peasants, and that they definitely didn't live in beauty, but everything was destroyed. You need to know, like, all those Anuminas, Fornos, those were beautiful, amazing cities, just like Osgiliath, and all these cities were once but they're destroyed, completely destroyed.
Completely gone, abandoned. Cardolan completely destroyed. Now not even destroyed. Sometimes if we think of Cardolan, maybe also an important topic, if we think about the Barrow Downs, for example, that were the graves of the lords and kings of Cardolan once, and now they are infested with those spooky, evil ghost demons, whatever you want to call them, and haunting them, and a terrible place. And almost they killed Frodo and his friends. It's really, really, really bad if you think about it. It's just gone. Nobody, maybe after when Lord of the Rings plays, remembers what Arnor once was, what glory it had. It's all gone. And Aragorn reflects this as a lonely ranger, and that's also just have to think about the Council of Elrond, where Boromir makes his speech and talks about that. In the films, it's a bit different dialogue-wise, but the point goes a bit in the same direction. By the blood of my people, your borders are safe. But in the book, Aragorn has a really, really good answer to this, where he says, "Dude, you have no idea what we do here, my friend. You have no idea."
Yeah. What we've done for centuries, like, basically, and
And that, especially, that's what I like about Aragorn so much, that there's no glory in he does it not for the glory. He does it because he's basically the king of this area, but there's no kingdom left.
Yeah.
And he still protects his people against the ring race, against all other foes coming there, protecting the Shire and whatnot. And many Dunedain Rangers of the North died there in the process.
Yeah, and they were
nobody know about this, and people.
And
people don't respect them. They treat them really, really poorly.
Yeah.
And then there's this point in this council where he really lets out a bit of anger, in my opinion, about this, and just points this out, especially when Boromir makes this point. It's also a really cool passage. Can recommend reading this. Always worth reading the Council of Elrond.
Yes, definitely. I thought about it because we're all doing I don't know, do you I mean, you're slow on video writing, and we did amazing spoiler collaboration for the Tolkien Reading Day, and I think the topic is about hope, and a few of us are bringing out a video about hope.
Yeah. I also want to take part in this collaboration.
Yay!
But
great.
I don't have a topic yet.
Okay, so maybe Council of Elrond or something like that. No,
something like that.
I like that scene. All the Hobbit thingies are already taken, so I have to think of something as well.
Yeah.
But coming back to Arnor, and because I said I like these prophecy things, and so Arvedui, last king, there is a really cool prophecy, and I want to read that little passage, and then we can discuss it, because I think there's a lot in there. And again, mini spoiler, because Aragorn is holding this ring, the ring of Barahir, and then there are the shards of Narsil. Narsil?
Yeah, Narsil. Stress on the first syllable.
Okay, yay. So all these heirlooms of the people that made it out, you must imagine, they made it out of basically Beleriand, because the ring is First Age, and Barahir. And so that made it out of the First Age. Then it came to Numenor, survived the drowning of Numenor, basically, and then again survived the downfall of Arnor, and was then held as an heirloom in Rivendell, awaiting for the real king to take, a bit like Excalibur.
Yes.
Waiting there for the real king, and the ring of Barahir as well, where Aragorn has the ring then, but it's such a cool symbol that these things like the Palantiri, they make it through all these centuries.
I'm not even sure if Narsil could also be forged in the First Age. At least possible. It's forged by the dwarves, by Telchar.
One of the coolest. Yeah, shout out to him. He's such a cool smith. Yeah, didn't he?
A lot of
masks.
The mask and the dagger that Beren used to get off the Silmarillion of the crown. Yeah. Forgot the name of the dagger, though. I think it's Angrist or something like this.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. and the mask of the dwarves. I think there's also they also have
the helmet, or dragon helmet of Dorlumin or something like this.
Yes, Turin's helmet. Yes, so cool. I love all these things. He was the forger of the First Age. Yes, the dwarven forger.
Yeah, he was a legend.
Yes. And so it's so cool that these objects, because they're so important, because they stand for all this rich history. Like Beren could get Lúthien's hand because he could, in a way, Thingol was reluctant at first, like, you want to marry my daughter? I'm not sure of that.
Yeah, I really like this dialogue too. It's like, when the hell freezes, my friend.
I know.
Basically his answer.
He would be like my dad. I mean, girls' dads know how that feels like. He's just being a girl's dad. It's okay. It's okay. Like nobody's good enough for my daughter. Yeah, but it's cool, because with this ring, so much is proven. With this ring, an elven king dies in a tower he built, killed by Sauron and werewolf. It has seen so much, and it's such a rich history that it makes it out of this, what we're talking about now, out of this prophecy, and about the sad death of the last king of Arnor, Arvedo. And let me read the quote now. And that was made from Malbeth the seer, and he spoke that at his birth. So this is very fairy tale material, when the good witch and the bad witch, they both. We're Germans. We love our fairy tales.
That's true.
When
Shout
they
out to Gebrüder Grimm.
So the prophecy at Arvedo's last king's birth was the following, made by Malbeth the seer. Arvedo, you shall call him. Oh my God, can't read. You shall call him, for he will be the last in Arthedain. Third choice will come to the Dunedain, and if they take the one that seems less hopeful, then your son will change his name and become king of a great realm. If not, then much sorrow and many lives of men shall pass, until the Dunedain arise and are united again. So, what's he talking about?
Yeah, so it's just very interesting. Tolkien really likes his prophecies sometimes.
Oh God, yes.
And there's just so much, and it's sometimes I'm very good at getting sidetracked, just thinking about that Melbeth was a man. He was not an elf or anything, and he was a seer. So also amongst men, there are people who have the gift to foresee the future or foresight. And also, I think the grandparents of Aragorn had also like a little prophecy going on for
his father, I think.
Yeah, for his father, exactly. That he will die young and so on. Yeah, it's a really interesting. I think there's also some connection with. I'm not sure. There's some weird, probably some notes about Melbeth. But yeah, what's going on here? Yeah, he makes a prophecy, and we spoiled it already, basically, in our previous talk. But Arvedo, you shall call him, and that means translated last king.
Yes,
that's basically his name. It's probably that's an interesting name for a king.
All Numenorean kings, their names mean what their fate is and what they do in life. Okay, thank you.
It's kind of funny. He is the last king in Arthedain, and it's talked about a choice that come to the Dunedain, and one seems, that's also like the little words in this prophecy. I also have it here in front of me. Seems less hopeful.
Yeah. It's also the hard choice, basically.
Yeah, there's a hard choice here. Mm-hmm. And he become a king of a great realm. That is one option he has. Mm-hmm. If not, though, much sorrow and many lives of men shall pass until the Dunedain arise and are united again. Mm-hmm. And
like Mandos, no? Like many tears ye shall shed, or whatever.
Yeah, unnumbered tears.
Unnumbered tears.
You shall shed. Yeah. That's another big prophecy.
Oh my God, I love that one. Like, curse you, Noldor. Take that, Arnor.
Don't go there. It's bad. That's basically the prophecy.
Yeah.
And this one, we know what happens. We talked already about the doom of Arnor. So it's a choice. If not, then much sorrow and many lives of men shall pass until the Dunedain arise again and are united. So the other option, exactly. The other option, I assume, maybe you can correct me there, but I assume is then your son will change his name and become king of a great realm, is when he would basically manage to do the uniting thing with Gondor already. He married into Firiel, we mentioned that already, that she is from the line of kings of Gondor, the daughter, and he had he had sons, but they all died against the Rain Riders. And as a result, he then for a time Gondor had no king, because the sons, the heirs were all dead, and the king was dead, and only the daughter was left, which is married to the last king, to Arvedo. And if now they would have said, yeah, dude, you are right, you can become now king, you can unite us, and then we are strong again, then he would have changed his name. He would not be the last king anymore. It's not mentioned what his name might be, but it would be a great realm again. However, that did not happen. And so they decided for the sorrow, and many lives of men shall pass. That is basically what happens here.
It's maybe, they didn't read about that in Gondor and didn't know about the prophecy.
Probably didn't know. That's true.
No, just kidding. But it's again, like, I love when Tolkien, this is, the thing he does with Turin and the children of Hurin so many times, with all these possibilities, with all these choices men have, and he always takes the wrong turn.
That's true. Always the wrong turn. He's really good at it, though.
He's good at effing up. And this is very similar here, men take the easy route, because he definitely says, the hard way. And if you take the harder choice, the long route, you will be successful. But he didn't, or they didn't. And it's sad. But again, then they're doomed. But he doesn't doom them completely. He says one day someone will come, like Arthur, and reunite Arthur, just saying, will reunite the kingdoms, which he does.
That's true. But also interesting, now that I just read it again, that the choice also comes to the Dunedain. It's not a choice that Arvedo makes. It's a choice of his people. That is also fascinating. That's just, like I said, you can read those many, many times, especially like a prophecy, like those important texts. Tolkien always puts a lot of effort into those, in my opinion. Always worth reading them multiple times.
So, do you have a last? I mean, we didn't talk much about what the Witch King did to them, but I think this would literally kill this video, because then it would be a 5-hour video, because I can't stop talking about the Witch King, my hero. I really like, and this is a good thing, because you learn so much more with these books and these backstories you have from the Arnor and from the wars in the north, and it's so cool, because you learn so much about the Witch King and his backstory and his vengeance that he really
and also his prophecy
and his Glorfindel. You have also such a cool. I have a Glorfindel video as well, but I love your Glorfindel video. Also a long one, but
it was also really fun to make. Glorfindel is also among my favorite characters with Elrond, our favorite elves.
Yes, and we'll see him, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, probably. It would be pretty cool. I hope that that they have access to this little detail of the lore, that he already arrives in the Second Age. That would be so fantastic to see him, do him finally justice. I missed him so much in the well, not originally, because I didn't read the books, but after reading the books and seeing the films, I think, oh no, why is Glorfindel not there? But I can understand the decision, though.
I get it. They wanted to give Arwen some dialogue and something to do.
Also helps condensing the story a bit.
It does. Yeah, but I really would have loved to see him in his wrath, because he has that might of a man like Galadriel, and hers you see in a way, like her test, and she has also the power of Aman still, and the two trees still in her. This is why she's so powerful, because she was born there. Same like Glorfindel. And I wanted to see that, so maybe we'll get that. I don't know, but it would be cool to see him. Círdan, for sure, we'll see. Gil-galad,
Finally, we see. We get maybe. I hope we get a bit more to see about Círdan. I mean, I want to make it
with a beard. You just want that.
That's true. Also, I started making a video about him, and it turned out 1.5 hours. But he was just very present in all events of the elves in some way. So
yeah. And do you think, like, has nothing to do with this, do you think was he born in Cuivennen, or do you
yeah,
I think he was one of
I'm
the
pretty
first.
sure he was born in Cuivennen, so that is the bay where the elves awoke first. He is most likely not one of the so-called unbegotten elves, so elves that have no parents, that just awoke the first.
Yeah.
Because it's said that he is kin to Thingol, Elwe, as he was called back in the day, Olwe, and
yeah, I think
what was the other brother? Well, there's another brother of Thingol and Olwe.
Yeah, I think he was. So he was not one of the OG 100. What was it? 77?
144. But that's always also a complicated topic. You can make a whole video just.
Watch my video, Chris.
Elmo was his name. I wasn't sure, but isn't also Elmo?
Yes.
Isn't he from the Sesame Street or something?
Yes.
Yeah. But he is also called that way. That's the kind of interesting. I couldn't believe that. Maybe, but no, wasn't then sure for a moment what his name was. But yeah, Elwe, Olwe, and Elmo are the brothers. And he's somehow related to them. We don't know how, but if he's related, it implies that there are maybe parents or so of those elves. Even though, in theory, they could be just let's not open this. Let's not go into this direction because we would derail the video.
No, but it's like Mandos is the brother of
exactly. That's an argument you could make. Or Melkor is a brother of Manwë and so on. Yeah. So they could maybe sort of but in this original tale, every of the elves that awoke also had a wife, and Elwe had no wife, so he can't be one of the unbegotten too, because he married Meliana and so on. But yeah, depends on how canon you see this original 144 elves awake story. Because I think there's a note. There's a note that even among the elves, it's more like a fairy tale. I think somewhere.
It's like
what also
Bible.
Yeah, exactly. It's also strange that, for example, you have the first 3 high kings of the elves of the 3 clans, Elwe, Thingol, Ingwe, and Finwë. And it's strange that they are not identical to the 3 fathers of the elves, which are, let me think, can I get the name? Enel, Tata, and Enel, Tata, and Imin. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And they never show up again. Why were
they never show up again?
Why were they not the ones going to Aman? That makes
Why are they not the high kings of the clans?
Yeah, exactly. They tell their children maybe to learn how to count or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. Often stories have this, and it's in mythology. It's also like this. We also mentioned that sometimes of some stories from Tolkien's drafts and notes there exist multiple versions, and you have to decide which one to pick, basically. But that's the same often in mythology, which Tolkien wanted to recreate. If you look at the Norse mythology, you don't have like a true canon. There are also stories that. In the same book, for example, in the Edda, that contradict each other. That can happen because it's just a collection of stories written at different points, maybe written by people who never talk to each other, and so on. And that's just a part of mythology. So Tolkien tries to mimic this in some parts too.
Yeah, he does. And he loved his fairy tales, and in a way, and you learn from fairy tales because they always have a meaning, right? And a message they transport. And so he loved that form. And this is like a myth that is, transported through the generations. And I really do think that I say that in my video, that I don't think that is 100% what happened, but what they tell their children. And this is their mythology of how they were born. And that's fine. Like we have in the Bible with Adam and Eve and how God created them. I mean, kind of, no, it's not true. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Good. Coming back to Arnor, Chris. I found the right person to always, because this is always what happens in my streams, and all my guests are always like, "But we came here to talk about something else," and you're the person, just like me, who goes from A to Z.
Yeah, I'm a bit sorry for the viewers, listeners for that.
Oh my god, no, they love that stuff.
I get sidetracked easy. That's why my videos are always so long.
Same. Maybe it's a German thing. I don't think so.
It's just, I think, just my mind is has trouble going in straight lines and just there's something interesting. Let's go there.
Shiny. No, we've just read too much. There's too much stuff in our head.
Yeah, that's true. It's all the names is just blocking my mind. I sometimes forget names of other people, but but I have, I don't know, thousands of Tolkien names in my mind. That's just, it's not good, I guess, but
not good for real life connections, but okay.
Yeah. What was your name? I thought your name was Elvish, right?
Was your name Arven? Oh, I don't know.
Sounded similar to that.
So, last thought about Arnor. Is there anything you want to tell the viewers why you really, really like this, except from your comment from the beginning? Why should people take a deeper dive into this topic?
I don't know. I think Arnor is a really key element of the story, especially if you want to understand Aragorn's storyline, who he is, and how he is so much connected to this. And as we mentioned, or as I mentioned at the beginning, it's so many things from this storyline, from the downfall of Arnor and the splitting up and so on, is reflected in other parts. Again, as we said, they didn't learn from Gondor, did not learn from Arnor, and there's just so much detail. Like it's just too much to cover. Just about Weathertop alone, you can talk about an hour. You can. It's a fascinating place that's in the middle of all of those three kingdoms Arnor split into. It was always fought. People fought over it. Then at some point, Angmar came into the equation, and things went downhill from that point. And it is such a important place. We talked about the communication in it. It's just so much detail in this place, in this rich story, and it's fascinating in a way, because when you go or read Lord of the Rings, everything of this is gone. You don't know what's going on about. You have to do research to find out what once was then. Of course, Aragorn tells you a little snippets of the story and there, but it's just so important to understand. That is the point, basically, where Arnor ended. If you look at Weathertop to some degree, it was where the ending started, where the civil war, basically, where the clashes happened between, and later the Witch King with all his force tried to destroy this place. That's why it's not there anymore, why it's ruins. And then if you just go back a bit in time, it's also the point where Elendil's forces united with the forces of Gil-galad, and when they formed the last alliance. And from there, one of the big defeats of Sauron happened just from this place. It's always like there in Arnor. It's like how do you call it? Something is brewing there that always is resistance, and that is a very, very powerful, can be very powerful for, even if it's completely destroyed, somehow it comes back. And it's also like, if we now jump forward to Lord of the Rings and we see Frodo on Weathertop, that's also a key moment in the book. It happens also on this place, and it is all, it's just in the heart of Arnor, and it's just such an important part that always comes back into the story, and that is really fascinating. So I can just recommend to all the people, read the chapters. The Weathertop chapters are just fantastic to read, in my opinion. They're among my favorite chapters of the Fellowship, of the whole Lord of the Rings. And
it's a good foundation. It is like place is a foundation, and then later on even with ruins is important. But yeah, it's everything that happens there is the foundation, that and Numenor, as a time before that. But yeah, and everything history repeats itself, what you
Yeah.
say. And yeah, it's a foundation of everything that happens later on, and mirrors everything in Tolkien's world is mirrored.
Yes.
Love stories are mirrored, and yeah, so it's cool, and it's different every time. And yeah, I love that. So take a deeper look into
Take
that.
a deeper look into this. It's really fun to explore this. If, for example, if you have read The Lord of the Rings and maybe not too much into the lore of it, I think that is a really good place to start. Just do some research on Arnor and its downfall and its story. Yeah. There's just much to discover and understand just in this part.
Yeah. And cool wars, and
cool wars, and the Witch King is there. And prophecy, and a powerful demigod elf that does prophecies. It's all in there.
Yeah, you have it all. And people think just, like the things in the 3 Lord of the Ring books are interesting. No, there's other good stuff Tolkien couldn't bring in. Yay. Cool.
I have one question that goes back to the Ring of Barahir that you mentioned like a long time ago. I think, isn't it so that in Rivendell, Aragorn gives the Ring of Barahir to Arwen? Or yeah, okay, I remembered that correctly. Good.
Yeah, I think she has it. And
yes, I think it's in Rivendell.
Yeah.
From that point on, okay. Wasn't sure about that anymore. If it was in Rivendell or already before it, but I think it's in Rivendell when he reaches there.
Yeah, and this is the symbolism that you always give this ring.
Yes, exactly.
Promise to somebody. The ring is always promising something. Like before it, it didn't drown with Arvedo because he gave it to those snowmen. And this is how the
lost or something as they called, right? Lost off.
Yes.
Hard to say for German.
And and this ring is always given as a promise, and that's so cool. And it mirrors it again. The history repeats itself. Yeah.
Exactly.
So note to ourselves a video about all these heirlooms as well.
Yeah, that would be definitely
topics alone in this discussion.
Yeah, it's just so much. So people notice by now. It will be difficult to run out of topics, and there's just so much of it and so much to discover, and that's a lot of fun. And if we might be able or were able in this discussion to share a little bit of that and a bit of enthusiasm for it, then it might have been worth watching until to this point.
People love that stuff, and you were a great guest, Chris. Thank you again. Let everybody know what's next for you. What video will drop next? I think you hinted it already, but what are you working on at the moment?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun getting sidetracked with you.
Come back soon. You're always invited.
I will. Thank you. What am I working right now is I work on a video about Elrond and try to cover his origins and also how Tolkien started developing this character to the point in Lord of the Rings, the Council of Elrond. And the rest I will probably cover later, but that's already quite a lot. And it's one of my favorite characters, and probably will be also a longer video. I don't know how long it will be yet, but that's probably the next big lore video I'm planning. Cool. It could take some time because I take time to do a lot of research for longer videos, and hope people have some understanding for that. But that will be next. I'm also still working on a gaming related video on my channel, but that might not be that interesting for most people listening to this podcast here, or to this video. So that's basically what's going on my channel right now. So I slowly make a video about Elrond. That will be great.
Yeah. And as we said, he's such an important character, and he combines all the houses in his line, and mirroring again a lot.
He also retrieves the ring of Barahir to Rivendell from the Lossoth.
He does. Cool. So, Chris, thank you again. I had so much fun. And maybe one day we'll do this in German.
Yeah, maybe. Would be interesting.
If you want, no, like I don't think I even have. Oh, I have one German follower. Yeah, I know of one person.
I have at least a few too.
Yay. Well, I'm one of them. So
okay. That's you.
That's me. I'm the creepy German. No, just kidding. No, we had a lot of fun, people. Thank you for staying here till the end, for everyone who made it. But I see in my statistics that people actually do watch the whole video. So that's good. And yay. What's up next for me? I will, as I said, I'll have a super cool collaboration whenever you're watching this. Maybe it's out already. With I do a Valentine's for all the beautiful people of you out there, and all the lovers and lonely hearts and whatever, and we'll do a cool Valentine's Day thingy, and I'll drop a fun stream about love in Tolkien and relationships and all that good stuff for Valentine's Day. And Joysten from Men of the West is also doing what's he doing? No, I think Matt from Lord of the Rings is doing a Beren and Luthien. And what is Joysten? I forgot. He's also doing something with love. And we'll drop all the infos for Valentine's Day.
I think it was also Beren and Luthien related. Maybe it was the reflection of Aragorn and Arwen to Beren and Luthien, something like this.
Yeah, something like, exactly. So very, very many Aragorn and Arwen and Beren and Luthien stuff, and I'll do something about love. And yes, that's next. And I'll have more guests on my channel. I really enjoy this form of thingy. And then I have my weekly Friday Q&A thingy going. I actually a lot of content in the past days and weeks. And I'll drop hopefully tomorrow, the Noldor, which took me also like 2 weeks to write. I'll drop the Noldor video, because so many Noldor, so many stories, people.
They have a lot of stories.
They do. The Vanya one was actually longer than I thought it would be, because I was like, what do we even know? But then, that is stuff, and you can speculate about a lot of stuff and find similarities, and why did he write them like he did and stuff like that. And the Vanya one was longer than I expected, and the Noldor is just like, oh my God, there's so much. And so many,
a lot.
Alone Fëanor, you can write like a book about him. So it's a long video coming, people.
It's really, Noldor is like, in which ages are you important? All of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the baddie's always the best. Good. So thank you guys again, and bye-bye, my lovelies.
Goodbye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen. Tschüss.